Mr. Salimullah, Mr. Bashir Jan Muhammad, Mr. Talib Kareem, presidents of the Islamic banks, foreign delegates, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me first of all say that Mr. Bashir Jan Muhammad has raised some very pertinent questions. And I hope that the conference during the next 2 days would take it seriously to address these questions, because these are not his questions, but I've heard this from many others throughout the country where I travel a lot. So we owe it to him and to the others who have skepticism about Islamic finance as to how this can be actually a true model of what our religion and the Sharia scholars want it to be. I would also like to commend the IoBM for organizing this conference at a very critical juncture when we have to embark upon a journey towards a full-fledged Islamic banking system by January 28. I find a lot of complacency and self-congratulations that we will be able to cross this hurdle. Let me be very frank, and let me allow me to be candid, as the purpose of my talk is to give a wake-up call. It is quite easy for judiciary and the legislature to have given the directives and the declaration, which is the easiest part, that by this time you shift to the whole banking system, transform into an Islamic system. That's the easiest part. The most difficult part is how this transition takes place, and that lies in the executive branch, the industry players, and the society at large. If adequate preparations are not made, and the behavior and mindset are not altered, I'm afraid the new system will become formally compliant, but in my view, it will substantively miss the spirit behind this conversion. I am afraid that only the State Bank and the Ministry of Finance are taking the lead in this effort, and I congratulate them. They have formed various working groups on the various aspects, and the work is going on. But the remaining ministries, the provincial governments, and the implementing agencies are not sharing the same commitment and the same passion towards Islamic conversion. And if I'm not right, please make me aware of this, because I go and talk to everybody, but it seems to be a silo approach where the whole effort is the Ministry of Finance and the State Bank of Pakistan. What has the executive got to do? And I would touch on some points that Mr. Bashir Jan Muhammad has raised. The present legal system, the laws, the precedents, the training of lawyers and judges are historically and heavily tilted towards the common law inherited by the British. Contract enforcement and dispute resolution mechanisms are lengthy, cumbersome, and very costly, with almost access denied to the poor. And the Islamic financial system can take credit only if every segment of the population, rich or the poor, can get justice in a fair and inexpensive manner. I'm not sure that our legal system and the courts and the lawyers are really ready for that. We have multiple layers and too many accolades. When I went to Swat after the Taliban or somebody like Mufti Maulana, what was his name, Saki Muhammad had taken over, and the people told me that we were supporting him because under the Swat Wali system, the Qazi used to take decisions in 3 or 4 days, which were quick and very fair. And that's why we supported Mufti Maulana Saab in order to establish that system. So the judicial legal system has to be completely changed from what it is today. Second, and this is what Mr. Bashir Jan Muhammad said, and I agree with him, the present tax system is highly arbitrary, regressive, discretionary, and penalizes honest and compliant taxpayers. Evasion, cheating, falsification of records, fake receipts and invoices, over-invoicing, under-invoicing, misdeclaration of value are the outcomes of the present taxation system. Do we foresee any drastic change in this present system where equitable, fair, and progressive taxation is enacted and going to be practiced? I do not see any evidence at present to convince me that we are moving in that direction where the taxation system is going to be compatible with the Islamic financial system. Third, the regulatory burden, and I'm not referring, everybody refers to the state bank, but the regulatory burden on the businesses and the arbitrary discretionary powers exercised by the officials, the petty officials of labor, health, environment, drugs, inspectors, building control inspectors, sub-registrars, has created an ecosystem where bargaining to the mutual advantage of the regulator and the business takes place as a routine. A poor man cannot have access to any regulatory agency because he doesn't have the connections or he has no capacity to bribe the officials. Regulations are violated and consumers suffer because of that. Have we thought whether the present conduct of the regulatory officers would facilitate conduct of transparent, honest transactions, which is the cornerstone of the Islamic finance? Now coming to the society, and this is a tall agenda. We are all Muslims, and we believe in life hereafter, where we would be accountable for our deeds. If the fear of Allah Almighty has not deterred us from indulging in all malpractices, we sell adulterated food, we produce spurious drugs, we weigh short, we use substandard material for our buildings, we swear to deliver goods in time but never do that, we commit to make payments for goods and services but keep on dealing and dallying and at times misappropriate that amount. How do we expect them to change their behavior in the next 3 years just because we have switched to the Islamic financial system? You very well know that the base trust is the basis of risk sharing in Islamic mode of finance. If our borrowers maintain 3 sets of books, one for themselves, the second for the tax collectors, and the third for their partners and investors, don't you think that Islamic banking would be faced soon with non-performing loans, erosion of capital, and finally bankruptcy? Do we envisage that under the new Islamic system, we will continue to depend only on murabaha, which is a cost-plus financing? Would this dominant mode allow us to reach to the pyramid, the bottom of the pyramid, the poorest of the poor. In the remote areas of Pakistan, 40% of the population is below the poverty line. And my test is whether the Islamic financial system is going to reduce the incidence of poverty in next 10 years from 40% to 20%. That is the test. If they are not going to do this, I don't think the Islamic financial system is achieving the purpose for which it is being installed. We do not have either assets or commodities, these poor people, to do the transactions. Are the banks ready to move towards cash flow lending or program lending to provide access to small farmers or SMEs? This is now the challenge for the industry players. Diminishing musharaka, in my view, is a very powerful instrument for promoting housing finance. Why is it that the existing Islamic banks and branches have not made use of this instrument at a wider scale? Mortgage finance still today forms a minuscule part of their portfolio. I don't want to get into the climate finance because Yusuf has already pointed out this, but my concern is, are the Islamic financial industry staff equipped to manage risks arising from the climate finance? Now, the government has really accelerated the issuance of sukuks, and I think they will continue to do so in the future. But do we have the volume of assets which underlie the sukuks for converting almost 43 trillion rupees of the outstanding PIBs and T-bills? And is deficit financing by the government an acceptable proposition under the Islamic finance? Is the Islamic banking industry going to take the place of the conventional banks in financing the deficits of the government rather than investing in productive sectors of the economy, helping the productivity in agriculture, bringing up new industries which the country needs, create employment opportunities in the services sector and in the education, health sectors? What about international banking relationships? Are these going to remain intact, or are they going to undergo some metamorphosis under the new system? Do we understand that the changes that have to take place to stay part of the international system without disrupting the existing relationships? Has anybody thought about this? How do we remain part of the international financial system? Because that is our prerogative to do things for the betterment of the country. You cannot be an insular economy, inward looking. You have to participate in international trade and flows. But will the Islamic financial system will allow us to do this, or we have to make some changes? Now, this point has been raised so many times, so I will be very brief. Have we considered that the talent which is working now in 80% of the conventional banking would be ready to become a true Islamic banking professional in 3 years' time? Do we have qualified trainers who are well conversant both with the Islamic jurisprudence and modern banking, who would be able to work on these 80% conventional banking staff to make them Islamic banking? Will they change their mindset? Because to me, it is the mindset of Islamic banking, and I congratulate the existing Islamic banks because they have done a great job in transforming the mindset of the staff, which is different from the conventional banks. What about the Sharia scholars? Is there an adequate supply or pipeline of Sharia scholars who would be able to form the Sharia boards for 24 banks, which will be converted into the Islamic banks? The country, as you know, has a huge challenge in our human development. 25 million of our children are out of school. Literacy rate is 60% only. Learning poverty is rampant. Stunting of children is 40%. Infant and mortality rates are high. Is the commercial Islamic financial industry have they thought of working, or they have the plans to work with the fintechs, with Islamic microfinance, with the charity, with philanthropy, with zakat, with sadaqah, with qarz hasna, with the waqf to tackle these challenges? Have they piloted any blended financing operation that can be subsequently scaled up throughout the country to make an impact? We all have been talking about quite for some time for this blending, but I haven't seen a ground evidence. I go all over the country, but I haven't seen any evidence that blended financing is helping solve these problems which I have pointed out to you. I do appreciate the trust of the Islamic banks using the penalty and fines for qarz hasna and scholarships for deserving poor students. But this has been on a sporadic, but not a systematic basis, on a collective basis. Is it permissible to use these funds for research and development? Because we need computers and science labs and equipment and materials and reagents, because if we have to make progress in the 21st century, we have to invest in research and development. Can these funds be earmarked for research and development? I don't know, but I'm posing a question for the Sharia scholars. I have taken the liberty of using this August gathering of senior government officials, industry executives, academics, and leading businessmen to raise these daunting issues. I hope that you would at least begin to reflect upon this and take immediate actions, because January 2028 is not far off. Thank you very much.